Okay, so in this section of the tutorial, I've got to be honest with you, this is my favorite section. And the reason is, I'm going to go through loads of tricks, loads of routines, and loads of applications for your Evoke deck. Now, if you haven't already watched the explanation of exactly what this deck is and what it can do and all of the features built into it, then go and watch that first. I'm going to assume that you know what the marking systems are. I'm going to assume that you understand how the stack works. And I'm just going to go through loads of different routines that you can use and you can perform with this deck. Now, we're going to divide it into kind of two sections: routines with a stacked deck of cards and routines with a shuffled deck of cards. Because a lot of the time when I'm doing Evoke, I'll start off with the cards stacked, and then maybe 2 or 3 routines in, I'll have them shuffled, and I'll go into other routines with a shuffled, with a shuffled deck of cards. But having routines that work with stacked and shuffled decks means that you kind of got a lot of options as to which way you want to go with this. And also, it's really nice to know that if you have one of those spectators that grabs the pack off you and starts shuffling them, it's not a problem because you can go into a completely different direction. So with that all being said, we're going to start off the next section by looking at tons of routines and applications with a stacked evoked deck. Let's do it. Okay, so the first routine I want to talk about is something that I like to call emotional prediction. Now, let me tell you what emotional prediction is. The whole idea is that you're going to do like a 3-phase routine where you read their mind a couple of times and then it finishes with a prediction. Now, to do this routine, you're going to need a business card and you're going to need your Evoke deck in a stacked position. And a lot of the time, as I say, I use this as an opener. And the reason I use it as an opener is because it's very direct. You're getting to the point very, very quickly. And there's a lot of really strong magic and mentalism that happens in a very short period of time. So what I do with this is I bring the deck out stacked, but I make sure that it's cut first so you don't see zest on the beginning, on the face, right? This business card will be in my wallet or be in my pocket or something like that. And I'll start off by taking the cards out, taking the Evoke deck out, and explaining that these are motivational posters, kind of mini motivational posters. I ask them if they've ever seen a motivational poster before, and they typically say yes, and then I show them these. And as I'm showing it to them, I do a Charlier shuffle. And the Charlier shuffle, very, very simply, is that you're going to take cards from the bottom and put them on the top, and cards on the top and put them to the bottom. It looks like the cards are shuffled, but in reality they're not. So let me show you what it looks like. It looks like this. It looks like you're just showing random cards and randomly mixing them up. But in reality, it's actually not changing the order of the cards. All it's doing is giving the cards a cut. And because these cards are cyclical, it doesn't actually change the order at all. So to do this, all you do is you push a few cards off. And then you just remember bottom to top, top to bottom. So I'll push a few cards from the bottom to the top, push a few cards from the top to the bottom, push a few cards from the bottom to the top, and you just keep doing that. And then you can square up and you can do it again. Now, I don't actually say that I'm shuffling the cards. That's implied by the fact that they can see that the cards are being shuffled. All I do is I say, look at these cards, these are motivational posters. And as I'm doing the Charlier shuffle, I'll point out different emotions. And I actually say right at the very beginning, I say, now the interesting thing about these motivational posters is that each one depicts a different emotion. And some of the emotions are positive, some of the emotions are negative. What's interesting is the negative emotions have a black and white picture. The positive emotions have colourful pictures. And that's my kind of opening script. And I'm just Charlier shuffling the cards as I'm showing them. Now, as I'm about to do this, all I'm going to do is I'm going to spread through until I find anxiety, which is really easy to do because they're stacked alphabetically. So if I see an M, I know they're about 13 cards away is going to be anxiety. When I see anxiety, I just get a break under it and I give the cards one more cut and I turn them face down. I then say, now before we do anything, I'm going to have you cut the cards. Can you do that for me? So I point to somebody on my side and I have them cut the cards, and we're going to use the cross-cut force here. So all you're going to do is you're going to have them cut the cards like that, somewhere in the middle. It's up to you, up to them where, and you're just going to take the remaining balance in your hand and put them on top in a diagonal position. Now, you don't want to say you're marking the cut or anything like that. You just say cut the cards any way you want to. They do that and you go, brilliant. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Now, the cross-cut force is brilliant, but the problem with it is, if I immediately say, look at your card now, it's a bit discrepant. So we need a bit of time misdirection. We need something to do between when they cut the cards and when you show them what the card is they cut to. And the time misdirection in this case is taken up with a business card. You bring out a business card. Now, I have anxiety written on the business card, which is obviously the first emotion in the stack. I have anxiety written on it. That's a pre-made prediction that I have in my wallet. And I bring this out and I say, I've got a prediction here. I'm going to put it down there. We're going to get back to it later on. But I want you to remember that before I did anything, I put that prediction down on the table. Now, my goal is that they're going to forget about that prediction. They're not going to worry about it. They're going to forget about it because that's going to be kind of my big finish. Now, that's given me the time misdirection to do this and say, look, that's the card you cut to. Can you have a look at the emotion, please? And I give them the card. I look away. They look at the word anxiety. And then I say, great, put it back. We'll leave it in the middle. And I bury it in the middle. And I'm not trying to control it. I am losing it. So now I'm going to give the cards another full shuffle as I'm talking about what's happening next. And I typically will do this full shuffle. Now, this is technically not a shuffle. This is a cut. All I'm doing is I'm holding the deck as if I'm doing an overhand shuffle, and I'm just chopping half the cards off and putting the rest on top. But when you do it like this, to a lay person, it looks like you're shuffling the cards, even though you're not. Now, you could do the Charlier shuffle face down if you wanted to, and kind of shuffle them like that. It's up to you. But as I'm talking, I'm not making a deal of it. I'm not saying, hey, I'm going to shuffle the cards. But as I'm doing this, I'm just saying to the audience, right, okay, now we're going to try something, and I'm going to try this with you. And I have somebody cut the cards and complete the cut. So they cut the cards and they complete the cut. Now, when they've done that, I look at the second line down. And as we know from the marking systems, the second line down is going to cue me to what the card at the bottom is. So I now know already that it's hatred, as you can see, hateful, sorry. So I know that that's going to be their emotion, right? So what I do is I have them cut and complete the cut. And I say, right, in a second, you're going to look at the bottom card of this packet. And as I say that, and as I point to the packet, I'm looking at the second line down. So I have a reason to look here. I'm not just looking there for no reason. I say, right, in a second, you're gonna pick up the packet, you're gonna look at the card, and then you're gonna put them on the table and cover everything up. And I want you to remember the emotion. Now, obviously, by tapping here, I can see exactly what it is that they're thinking of. As I say, it's hateful. So now, I look away, they look, they remember the emotion, they cover up their hand. And now I look back at them, and I tell them the emotion they're thinking of. Now, there's a few different ways of doing this. You can, because you know what the emotion is, and therefore you also know whether it's a positive or a negative emotion, you can have them think about how that emotion would make them feel. You can have them think of a time that they experienced this emotion. You can have them think of the emotion as it's written down on a piece of paper or on a screen. A lot of the time, if you've seen me perform before, one of the things I like to do is I like to have somebody think of the word by imagining it's on a cinema screen in neon. And I'll have them say to me, what color is the neon? And they'll tell me, and I'll go, interesting, as if that tells me something. Or I might even say, oh, green, well, that tells me it's a negative emotion. And this is great because you're not fishing, you're directly giving them hits. And you go, okay, think of the first letter, imagine it shining brighter than all the other letters. It's a H, isn't it? Which really freaks them out. And they go, yeah, it's H. And you go, I tell you what, think of a letter in the middle of the word. And this is an old mentalist trick that I use in all of my presentations when I'm doing mentalism or mind reading or mental magic. I'll have them think of a letter in the middle of the word, and every single time when you have them think of that letter in the middle of the word, and you make the statement, hateful, for example, you'd make the statement, that's interesting, you were kind of bouncing between like an E and an F, weren't you? Look at the live performance footage on this project. You'll see people freaking out at that moment, and you go, yeah, it was an E, wasn't it? And then again, they freak out some more, and you go, yeah, I can tell, yeah, you were thinking of You're thinking of hateful, is that right? Or you can tell them the final letter. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but you're revealing that you know the emotion. And as I say, you don't have to do it by having them think of how it's written down on a screen. You can, if you want to, have them think about how it makes them feel. But this is really strong. And this is one of the reasons I love this as an opener, because it's also very direct. Because you're literally having them think of any emotion from their point of view, and you're able to immediately tell them the emotion they're thinking of. Now, once you've said hateful and they say you're correct, I show it like this, and I show them that it does say hateful. Great. Now I do it again. Now you can do it to the same person if you want to, or you can do it to a different person. It's completely up to you. So if you do it to the same person or a different person, you're going to do the same thing. You say, hey, I tell you what, cut the pack anywhere you want to and complete the cut. So they cut the pack anywhere they want to, you complete the cut, and you say, look, I tell you what I want you to do. I want you to look at the bottom card, I'm going to look away. Now they're going to look at that bottom card, and because of the marking system, you're going to know exactly what it is, right? You know, in this case, it's yuck. Now, if you want to, they don't have to look at the card. So you could, because you know what it is, right? So you know exactly what it is. So if you want to, you can just say, now this time we're not going to look at it. I want you to just cover up your hand, because I know it's love. So I don't need to look at it if I don't want to, or I can. Again, it's completely up to you. But let's assume that you want them to look at it again. So you say, hey, I'm going to look away. I want you to look at the bottom card and then cover it up. So now they look at the bottom card, they cover it up, and you're now going to say to them, and it's really nice because you can reference the first emotion when you're telling them what the second emotion is. So in this case, the second emotion I looked at is love. The first one was hateful. So if I had a situation like this, I'd say, now think of that emotion. Think of how it makes you feel. This is interesting. I can tell immediately this is a positive emotion, isn't it? Yeah, and the first emotion was a negative emotion. You can relate to this emotion as well, can't you? And you can make statements like this. This is almost like kind of cold reading type kind of methodology we're going into here. Because you know what the emotion is, most people, if you say, you can relate to the emotion that you're thinking of here, can't you? Most people have experienced love at some point in their life. Now, it doesn't work with every emotion. It's unlikely to work with something like xenophobia, for example, but with love, and most of the emotions, it does work really well. So you can go, hey, this is something that you can really relate to. In fact, this is something that you feel quite regularly or you have felt in the past. And this is the exact opposite of the first emotion that you thought of. I'm getting a complete polar opposite. I don't even need you to get to think anymore. I can tell it's love. You're thinking of love, aren't you? And you know, that half of the battle with this is just winging it. When you're doing this, it's just winging it and it's just presenting it. You have the information in front of you to be able to tell people everything. What's really nice is you're not fishing, you're not doing anything, and the marking system is so direct. Just by telling them, just by looking down for a split second, you've got absolutely everything that you need. Now, the final phase with this is I say, look, we'll try it one more time. But I said I was going to tell you at the beginning, I was going to show you the difference between reading a mind and predicting what was going to happen in the future. Now, when I told you what your emotion was, that was reading you. That was looking into your eyes and kind of working out what you thought of. But this time, I'm going to show you what it's like to predict what you were going to do before you even did it. Because here's the thing. This business card has been on this table the whole time. Been there from the very beginning, and it's been there before I had you cut the cards at the very beginning and look at an emotion. Do you still remember that emotion? And they'll say yes, and you go, fantastic, what was the emotion you were thinking of? And they'll say anxiety, and you go, anxiety, you're not going to believe this, I wrote down anxiety. And it's a really great finale to that routine. It gives it a big finish, because the problem with just doing, telling people the emotion they think of over and over again is there's not really a finale, you're just doing the same thing. But this gives it a really great finale just by doing a cross-cut force. So that's a great routine. Now in the next routine, we're going to look at a variation of this, where instead of making a prediction at the end, you're giving a different finale that's just as powerful, but you're not needing to do the cross-cut force at the beginning. So we're going to have a look at that one right now. So this is a follow-up to the previous routine, and on this particular effect, you're going to do the same thing, but instead of using the crosscut force to predict the emotion they're going to be thinking of, you're actually going to use the fact that we have the kind of the mother of all book test principle built into these cards. So let me explain. It starts the same way, in that you bring out the stacked cards and you explain what they are and that they've all got different emotions on them. And as I said before, I like to do a Charlier shuffle as I'm displaying them. The only difference here is you're not going to put a prediction down, you're not going to do a crosscut force, you're going to go straight into having them think of emotions. So I went through this in great detail in the previous routine, so I'll just gloss over it. The first phase is to have them cut and complete the cuts. And you look down here and you look at what the emotion is. I immediately know it's vanity. So you have them look at the bottom card, they look at vanity. You then tell them exactly what the word is, however you want to. Whatever way that you want to reveal that you know that emotion, you can do it whatever way you want to. You then follow up on a second phase. The second phase is you get them to cut again, and you again say, right, okay, I want you to look at the bottom card again. Now, obviously, I know it's hateful because I looked at the markings. So at this point, they're covering up, and I'm explaining, hey, this is another negative emotion, isn't it? You've picked a second negative emotion. I'm getting negative vibes. This is an emotion that you felt in the past, but you don't feel it now, but you did back in the day. Is that right? Yeah, there was a particular period of your time, your life, where you felt like this, but you don't anymore. You don't like feeling like this. You're thinking of hateful, right? And that's another example of how you can really, if you just, I mentioned this before, but if you just go, look at the bottom card, remember the emotion. Can you do that? And you just turn around and you go, you're thinking of hateful. It's not that great. The whole thing about this deck and the fact that it's emotive and there's emotions in there is that you can really build up the presentation and you can really tie into their feelings when you're actually revealing this information. Now, the final time you do this, you're going to have them cut the deck again and you're going to complete the cut. So they're cutting the deck and they're completing the cut. Now, because of the emotions, I can see that they've thought of vanity again this time. So let's go for a different one. There we go. So I can see that immediately by looking at the cards that the emotion is depressed. And I can also see that the long word they're thinking of is reminder. So I can see on here, remember, so I can see on here, if you look at this, if you do this yourself and you follow along with me, the only long word that they're going to actually be able to think of on this card is remember. So the way that I do it this time is I say, look, I tell you what, I want you to look at that bottom card, I want you to remember the emotion, and I'll actually give them the card this time. I say, I want you to look at the bottom card, remember the emotion, but there's a quote on the card as well. And what I'd like you to do is have a look over that quote and pick a word off that quote and remember that word, but make it a nice big long word, maybe over 5 or 6 letters, something that you can really focus on. So what they're going to do is they're going to look at that card and they're going to remember depressed, and then they're going to remember, they're going to remember reminder as well. So that's going to be the two things that they're going to look at. And that happens automatically, as we know with this deck. So now you can say to them, hey, what would you like me to get first? Would you like me to get the emotion first, or would you like me to get the word? And let's say they say the word, and you say, okay, concentrate on the word, think of the word, think of the first letter. It's an R, think of a letter in the middle of the word, think of the last letter, and you can kind of really build this up, and then you can give them the emotion. And go and have a look at the live performances of me doing this, because a lot of the words are words that you can actually kind of make comments on if they're thinking of it. So one of the words, for example, is perseverance. And if you look at the live performances, you'll see that there was a particular moment where I was performing to somebody, and I did this, and I had them think of the long word, and it was perseverance. And I said, this is something that you can really relate to. This is a word that you can relate to, and you try to do what this word is. That's why you picked it, right? And they were like, yeah. I was like, fantastic. I think I've got it. It's perseverance. And that was as strong, if not stronger, than telling them the emotion. So this is a great way to end the kind of a 3-phase mind reading bit with the cards as well. The key thing is to jazz it. I mean, you could make a 4-phase routine combining the last 2 routines that I went through with you, and you could start off by telling them the emotion, then telling them the word they're thinking of off the quote, and then you could finish off by predicting the emotion that they picked at the very beginning. The whole idea with this deck is that you go in whichever direction feels comfortable to you. So, hopefully you enjoyed that, and now we're going to move on with another routine. Okay, so I want to talk to you about another thing that you can do when the cards are in stack, which is you can actually use the images that are on the cards as kind of a remote viewing type thing. So let me tell you what I mean by this. So once you've introduced the cards and you've pointed out that they're, they're all emotions, and you want to point out the pictures as well and say, look, there's lots of different pictures and some of them are in black and white, some of them are in color. You have them cut the cards, and this is a nice thing to open with a lot of the time actually, because it's very quick. You have them cut the cards and you have them complete the cuts. And you're going to say to them, I want you to take the bottom card. Now, if you understand the marking system, you'll know on the right-hand side, second line down, that's going to cue me what the image is on the top card, right? And I see an M. So that tells me the top card has mountains, which it does. However, if you know the order of the 5 images, because remember the 5 images are cyclical. It's flower, tree, mountains, waterfall, body of water, like an ocean, right? So if you know the order of the cards or the order of the images, when you see the M here, I know that the card on the bottom is going to be a tree. And because I can see what the, which it is, by the way, as you can see, they are trees, vanity. And because I can see here what the emotion is on the bottom card as well, I'm going to know whether it's a black and white picture of a tree or if it's a color picture of a tree. So what I can do is I can have them cut the cards and I can complete the cut. Now, when I've done that, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to say, look, in a second, I'm going to have you take the bottom card. And just by looking, I know that the bottom card is joyful, right? So I know that it's going to be a color image, and I know everything. I know that it's going to be a color image of the ocean. So you can see here a color image of the ocean. So I can say to them, what I want you to do is I want you to have a look at the bottom card, take the bottom card, I don't want to look at it, I look away, and I want you to look at the image this time. Just have a look at the image on the card. Can you do that for me? Have a look at the image on the card, fantastic. Now what I want you to do is I want you to focus on whether it's a colorful image or a black and white image. Okay, I see a lot of color, it's color, isn't it? Now look at the image as a whole. Okay, I can see, okay, it's not land. You're looking at the ocean? Are you looking at the ocean? It's a colorful picture of the ocean, is that right? And that's a great moment because you've told them exactly the image that they're thinking of. Now, if you wanted to, because I know this card is joyful, I could even follow up and say, well, have a look at the emotion now if you can. Have a look at the emotion on the card. And I can tell them the emotion, and I can even have them think of a word on the card, and I can tell them exactly what the word is because I've got all that information there. So again, giving you one more example, we just cut and we complete the cut. Now I know that this card is xenophobia, okay, as you can see, xenophobia, and I know exactly what this is because I can see the marking here, so I just have to reverse one, so I know it's the waterfall, right? So because I know it's the waterfall, immediately I know it's a black and white picture of a waterfall, so I can tell them, hey, look at the picture, look at the image. It's black and white, isn't it? Yeah, it's black and white. I see water, but I also see land. It's a waterfall. Is that right? You're thinking of a waterfall? Now, you could do this if you wanted to, just by looking. If you didn't want to reverse the image, you could do this with the top card. So, for example, you could just cut and complete the cut. And I know that this is indecision and waterfall. So I know that I have here, the top card is a waterfall and it's black and white. So if I want to, I can do it off the top card, or, and this is really super smart, you can give them a choice. So you can have them cut the cards and complete the cuts. And you can say, right, it's up to you. Would you cut to 2 cards in essence, the bottom card or the top card? Would you like the top card or the bottom card? Makes no difference to me because I know that the top card is going to be a colourful picture of some mountains as you can see, colourful pictures of mountains. And I know the bottom card is going to be a black and white picture of a tree. And there it is, black and white pictures of trees. So I can give them a choice of the top card or the bottom card. But if you're doing a remote viewing, this is a really nice thing to do, to actually have them look at an image and tell them exactly what the image is. It's great. It's perfect. So it's not just about telling them the emotion. It's not just telling them about the words that they're thinking of, but because of the Quran principle built into the images, you can, as long as you know the order of the 5 images, flower, tree, flower, tree, mountains, waterfall, body of water, you can immediately tell them everything that they need to know about that image. You can even tell them without them looking at it. So let's say they cut and complete the cut. And you say, do you want the top card or the bottom card? And let's say they say the bottom card and they put it over here. I can tell them exactly what it is. You know, I can tell them it's a tree and it's a colourful picture of a tree. Boom, there it is, colourful picture of a tree. Without them even looking at it. So there's lots of different options from a presentational point of view with that as well. We're going to talk about one more thing you can do with the images, and we're going to look at that right now. Okay, so in the previous routine, we talked about remote viewing, and we talked about how we could actually use the images that are built into the Evoke stack to be able to do a remote viewing and tell people the image that they're looking at. You can also use this exact same principle to do a drawing duplication, either close-up or on stage. So let's say you're doing it on stage. If you were doing it on stage, you'd have 2 clipboards, and you'd use these cards for inspiration. And what I mean by that is you'd point out that they've all got different images on them, and they've all got different emotions, and you'd have somebody cut and complete the cut. And when they cut and complete the cut, you can give them the option of the top one or the bottom one. So let's say the bottom one, you would give them this. Now I know exactly what that is because I'm looking here. I know it's a tree. So you could say, have a look at that image, remember it, don't forget it. Can you do that for me? Fantastic, we'll cut it into the pack, we don't need it. What I want you to do is I want you to draw whatever it is, the thing that you saw. Now you don't have to draw it exactly like it was in the picture, you can do your own drawing of it, but I'd like you to draw that image. Could you do that for me? And then what you can do is you can do a drawing duplication in real time. So what I mean by that is you can have a clipboard, they can have a clipboard, and you say, look, I'm going to try and pick up on what you're doing, so we're going to do this at the same time. When I say go, you start drawing, I start drawing, and you're standing back to back on stage, and you're using this as a basis to know the image that they're thinking of. You're limiting their options, and you immediately know what they're going to be drawing, but it feels like a very free choice for everybody watching in the audience. So you're standing back to back, you're drawing a tree, they're drawing a tree, you then turn to face the audience, you're holding the clipboards, and you say, turn around yours, what did you draw? Oh, that's a tree, boom, I drew a tree as well. You can also do that in close-up using business cards. So you can give them a business card, you can have a business card, and you can do exactly the same thing. Now, if you don't want them to cut the cards, by the way, they don't have to. You could literally spread the cards out on the table and have them touch one. When they touch one, you can literally do that, because that in essence is going to do the same thing, because what we have here is fearless, and that second line down will tell me that this is fearless and this is a flower. So I can spread through and I can say touch anyone you want to, that one right there. All I have to do is I make sure that I cut where they touch. That's very important, and I now know that that's a mountain and it's a black and white mountain. So I know that, sorry, a tree. It's a tree. I was thinking of the top one, sorry. Yeah, the bottom one is a tree. So I know that that's a tree. So now I can have them draw a tree. So you can have them touch anyone they want to. You can cut at that point, and that's the equivalent of cutting the pack. I know that's a flower. Boom. So, and you can keep doing this as many times as you want to, right? Now, the other way that you can do it is you can spread the cards out and have them touch a card. So you can have them touch the card and you can cut the cards like this. Now all I have to do is glance down. I see a mountain here, so I know that if I go backwards one from mountain, I'm going to see a tree. I know that's a tree. So there's so many different ways that you can actually do this. You don't just have to get them to cut in the completed cut. As I say, you can spread them out on the table. You can have them touch one. It makes no difference. But if you're going to do if you're going to do a drawing duplication, then the important thing is that you have it put back in, right? And you tell them that it's not necessarily that image. So in this case, this is a waterfall. They would be looking at a waterfall. That would get cut back into the pack, and then you would take your business card, or you would take your clipboard, and you would start drawing a waterfall. They would start drawing a waterfall, and then you turn it around and show it's matched. So using the images on the card, it's a very interesting way of doing a drawing duplication. Okay, so another way that you can use your Evoke deck when they're in stack is by doing a really cool triple prediction. Now this is actually based on a routine that I put on my forecast project. I bought a project out called Forecast, all based on the mnemonic or the memorized deck with the 1914 a couple of years ago. And on that routine, or on that project, I put a routine on there that was based on a Bill Malone routine. And you can do exactly the same thing here. So you can actually, and it is very, very strong. So let me explain what's happening. So you've got your deck in stack. Now the deck can literally, I've got anxiety on top. You don't need to have anxiety on top. I typically like to have anxiety on top when I go into this routine. You could have them cut the cards and then just go from here. But to be honest, what I typically do when I do this is I'll do a Charlier shuffle to show that all the cards are different, and then I'll make sure anxiety is on top, right? Now all you're going to do is you're going to have, you can do this on one person or you can do it on three people. I prefer to do it on three. So you're going to have the first person over here cut the card, you say cut a small packet of cards off onto the table. So let's say they do this. You then say to the second person, cut a small packet of cards off there, so they do this. And you say to the third person, cut a small packet of cards, so they do this. So you've got three packets, and you've had these cards, these packets laid down on the table from right to left, and you're left with a few cards in your hand, right? Now, the bottom card of this pack is Trust, which you'll see is actually the second line down here. So the second line down of the cards that are left in your hand will cue you as to what these cards are here. Let me do that again for you so you understand. So the first person cuts some cards here, the second person cuts some cards here, the third person cuts some cards here. I look over here and I see Vanity. So I know that the bottom card of this packet is going to be Vanity. So all I do is I just hold these in my hand and I say to the first person, I'm not going to look, I'm going to look away, have a look at the bottom card of that packet and then put your hand on top of it. So they do. And now I tell them the emotion they're thinking of. Now I don't directly say you're thinking of Vanity. As I talked about earlier on in this section, I reveal it very, very slowly. I have them think of the word. I have them think about how it feels. It's a negative emotion. You know, I go through all of that. And in the end, I'll tell them that they're thinking of Vanity. And at which point, if you want to, you can actually show that you were correct. Now I put this packet, when I've got this one correct, I put this packet onto the cards in my hand. I'm just casually holding the cards in my hand. And as I do, I can look here and the second line down of this top card will tell me the bottom card of this packet is. So I see nervous. I know this card is going to be nervous, right? Now I don't, with the second person, I don't have them look. I say this time I want you to cover your packet up. I don't want to look at it at all. I'm going to try and work out what that is. You know, you picked Vanity, which was a negative emotion. I think this is a negative emotion as well, but I think it's a very different emotion to Vanity. Vanity is when you're feeling, you know, it's a negative emotion. You don't want to be vain about yourself, but this isn't that. This is something that really affects a lot of people. I think it's nervous. I think you're thinking nervous, and I'll reveal it however I want to, but I'll show that this packet has got nervous written on it. Perfect. Now I put that back over here, and now I can look here and I can see, using the second line down, what this last card is. It's hateful. As you can see, it's hateful. Now what I do with this last packet is I say, we're going to try and do something a little bit different here. Can you look at the bottom packet? Can you look at the bottom of that packet and remember what the emotion is? So the final person will look here and they'll look at hateful. And then I tell them to shuffle the cards. So they shuffle the cards. And then I say, once you've shuffled the cards, spread them out towards you so you can see all the emotions. And I'm going to try and tell you every emotion that's in that packet. If I get it right, pass it to me, I'm going to put it over here. I'm not trying to tell you what your emotion is right now. So if I call your emotion out, don't tell me that's the one. Don't tell me what your emotion is that you thought of earlier. Just spread the cards out, look at all the emotions, and I'm going to try and tell you what the emotion is that you're thinking of. This feels impossible because they saw you shuffle the cards and they saw you mix up the cards, and they cut anywhere they wanted to. It's impossible that you could know every emotion here, but that's exactly what you're going to do. Now, you're going to start off by telling them their emotion. So it's really important that you don't tell them. It's really important that you say to them, look, I'm trying to tell you every emotion that you've got here. So if I call out your emotion, don't tell me, because you don't want to say right at the very beginning, hateful, and they go, yeah, that's my emotion. So they've spread them out like this. I'm holding this packet here. So the first one I would say is I can tell that hateful's in there. Pass me hateful. Now, when they pass you hateful, which will be there somewhere, there we go. When they pass you hateful, all I have to do is look there, and I'm going to be able to see in order, the second line down is going to tell me what the next one is. So even though they've shuffled these cards, by me calling them out in order, we're restacking them back into the correct order. So I look here and I see grateful. So I see a positive emotion in there as well. It's grateful, is that right? I see grateful, quite a positive emotion. Yeah, and they say yes, and I take this and put it over there. And now I'm just going through them. So I say another positive emotion. I'm getting another positive emotion here. Fearful, I see fearless, sorry. So they'll pass you fearless. And then you see the next one. You see, you know, you can see there. I see another positive emotion. It's ecstatic, is that right? And they'll say yeah, and you take that one, you put that one over there. And I'm just reading the second line down the whole time. I say, now I see a negative emotion, depressed. Is that right? Do I see depressed? Yeah, and they say yeah. And you say, okay, I think there's one more positive emotion. I see confident. Is that right? And they go yeah. I'm just reading the second line down. I see another negative emotion. Boredom, is boredom there? And there's one final negative emotion. This is something that you've felt yourself in the past, anxiety. So you even though they've shuffled the cards themselves, using this really fun, clever little bit, you're immediately able to restack the cards in order and tell them every emotion that they cut off that they were thinking of from a shuffled pack. And then you turn around to them and you say, and obviously the emotion that you were thinking of was in there. Concentrate on the emotion. There were negative and positive emotions in that packet, but I think that you're thinking of a negative emotion, aren't you? Yeah, you're thinking of a real serious negative emotion. When you think of negative emotions, this is probably one of the most negative. I'm seeing hateful. Is that the emotion you were thinking of? You're thinking of hateful. Brilliant. And that's the end of the routine, or that's the end of the bit. But it's great. And when I did this with a memorized deck, I had to keep glimpsing the bottom card in order to get the information I needed for the next packet. But because of how this works, I don't have to do that. I literally look here and I can see straight away they're thinking of wonder. And as soon as I put those over there, I can see straight away they're thinking of xenophobia. And then I can look here straight away and I can see exactly what they're thinking of and put it here. So it's a very direct mind reading piece that really makes you look very, very good. So yeah, that's the routine. It's based on forecast, but it's a very fun routine to perform. There's a lot of audience interaction. You've got a lot of people helping you. Okay, so this one's called Feeling Emotional, and a big shout out to Luke Jamay for this. I remember seeing many years ago Luke Jamay do a routine in a convention that just fooled everybody. It was during a lecture, and he was calling, I think he called it Feeling the Colours, and he had a deck of cards, and he would literally just hold the cards like this, feel, and tell you if they were red and black. And it was an incredible method. You should look it up. But I realized very early on that if you're using these cards in stack, you can actually do the same thing, but you can actually go one step further and keep them in stack at the same time. So let me show you what I mean. So you would start off by bringing out the cards and pointing out that they're like mini motivational business cards, and do a little Charlier shuffle as you're talking so it looks like you're shuffling them. And then point out that there's an emotion and that there's a photo or a picture on each one. And some of the pictures are black and white, some of the pictures are colourful. And the black and white ones are typically negative emotions, while the colourful ones, like patience, are positive emotions. You do all this, and then you do like a little fake shuffle. I talked about this earlier on. I'm literally just cutting the cards, but it looks like I'm giving them a shuffle. I say I'm going to try. I've got the ability to feel colours. Let me show you what I mean. And you have them cut the cards and complete the cuts. So they cut the cards, they complete the cut, and you say, look, I'm going to look away, and I'm going to try and tell you what the colour is on the bottom. Now, as I say that, I briefly look down, and I see that the second line down is trust. So I know that's going to be a colourful picture. So I say, right, okay, I can feel colour. That's definitely colour. That bottom card is colourful. Let's have a look. There you go, a colourful picture. And then you put it back at the bottom and you say, well, let's try this again. Cut the cards any way you want to, complete the cards. And you can do the same thing again. So I can see that confidence is on the bottom. So I can just look away and I can go, I'm feeling colours again. Yeah, I don't feel, that's not black and white, that's colourful. And what makes this really powerful is you're looking away, you're obviously not looking. That's because you're getting the glimpse when they've cut. But you're looking away and you go, yeah, that's definitely a colourful image. There you go, colourful image. And you can do that as many times as you want to, and do not underestimate how powerful this is. It is very powerful. And yeah, that's a colourful image as well. Yep, there's a colourful image. You can do that as many times as you want to. Now, the problem with this is there's no ending. But because the same method that you're using to get the colour is also going to give us the emotion, you can then finish off by stepping it up a notch and actually saying to them, now that's feeling colours. You know, it's very, very easy for me to feel colours and go, yep, that's black and white, definitely black and white. But I can also feel emotions. I know it sounds ridiculous, but we're going to cut and complete the cut. So you get them to cut and complete the cut, and they can cut again if they want to. It makes no difference. Now you look down for a split second. I see that the word is nervous, and so I now know. I can go, hang on a minute, let me feel. Right, it's black and white, which means it's a negative emotion. It's making me feel really nervous. That must be it. It's nervous, and then I can show them the actual emotion that they cut to, as well as the picture. You can do that again if you want to as well. So you can get them to cut, you can get them to complete the cut. I just look down, I know immediately it's boredom, so I can go, oh, that's another negative emotion. It's definitely black and white. Boredom, I think I'm getting boredom. How am I doing? Is it boredom? Oh, it's boredom. How amazing is that? Now, you can actually take this to the next level if you want to, and you could even tell them the picture. So you could get, so the first phase could tell them whether the picture is black and white or colourful. The second section could be telling them what the picture is, and then the third section is telling them what the emotion is. So you could start off by having them cut and complete the cut, and I can tell them that that's a colourful image. Then the second time you can cut and complete the cut, and you can tell them that it's oh, hang on a minute, it's colourful. I think it's the sea or the ocean. It's a colourful picture of the ocean. There it is, colourful picture of the ocean. And then the last time they cut and complete the cut, you can say, yeah, it's colourful as well. No, it's not. It's black and white. It's black and white. It's black and white. I think it's a waterfall. And the emotion makes me feel really down, like I'm depressed. It's a black and white picture of a waterfall, and it's depressed. And there it is, a black and white picture of a waterfall that's depressed. So you can do the Luc Jamay sort of feeling the colours, but you can do them by really kind of getting more impressive each time. A couple of times you feel the colours, then you feel, and you actually tell them what the image is, and then you actually tell them what the emotion is as well. So it's a nice way to actually build in all of these reveals, and it's really strong, especially as you're looking away and you're not even looking at what's going on. You can, if you want to, actually have a direct vision blindfold. So you can put a blindfold on where you can just see down your nose, because if this is in front of you, when you've cut and complete the cut, if this is here and you've got this blindfold on, just by looking down your nose, you're going to be able to see that that's grateful, and I'm going to be able to know exactly what that is, and that it's a colourful image of a tree. So you could actually put a direct vision blindfold on when you did this as well. Either way, it's a really fun application of the stacked principle that's built into the Evoke deck. I think you guys are going to love this. This is the last routine I'm going to offer you with the stacked Evoke deck before we go into ones with a shuffled Evoke deck. And if this was a kind of a dealer trick and it was like a standalone trick, the ad copy would say that you would be able to tell somebody the name of a person they're thinking of, but they're not going to write it down, they're not going to say anything, they're not going to ever tell you, and yet you're going to be able to tell them the name of the person they're thinking of. Now, if that sounds strong to you, this is exactly how you're going to do it. It's a very simple application of the stack and the one ahead principle. So you're going to have 2 business cards or 2 billets, it's completely up to you, and you're going to have a pen to write on those, and you're going to have the Evoke deck. So you start off, and honestly, this is a great trick to close with. It's very strong. You start off by pointing out that these are motivational posters. You've probably already told them at this point. And what you're going to do is you're going to give them the cards, and you're going to say to them, I want you to take any one of the cards out that you want to. I want you to go through for an emotion. It's completely up to you which emotion. When you've got the emotion that you're happy with, I want you to cut the cards at that point and then take that emotion and give it to somebody else that's here. You have a free choice of any one of these emotions. So you're going to go through, when you've got one that you're happy with, cut at that point so it's on the face, and then give it to the person next to you, and you can just put the rest of the cards down on the table. Now, by them doing that, what's going to happen is they're going to go through and they're going to be looking at all of these emotions. And let's say they decide love. Let's say they decide love. They're going to cut so that love's on the face, and they're going to hand that card to somebody else and put the rest of the cards down on the table. And you're looking away the entire time, and this person has been handed love. And you're still looking away, and you say, right, what I want you to do is look at that emotion that you've been handed, and I want you to think of a person who you have, that you've known in your life, that you can relate to that emotion. So it might be a friend at school or at work, or somebody that you knew years ago. It might be a relative, it might be somebody that you know now. It could even be somebody completely random, like you know them but you don't physically know them, like somebody on Facebook. Or it could even be a celebrity or something like that. But think of somebody you can relate that emotion to. Now it might be a friend, but hey, if it's a negative emotion, it might be somebody that you didn't like at school. I don't know which emotion that you've been given. Can you do that, and can you think of somebody? And they'll say yes, and you go, great, do you know their first name? And they'll say yes, and you go, brilliant, just think of their first name, and then put that card with that emotion in your pocket. So, and you've been turned around the entire time. So now they've put this card in their pocket, so we'll put it under the mat to signify it's in their pocket, and you now turn round. Now, when you turn round, you're going to pick these cards up to put them away. And as you pick them up to put them away, I'm looking at the second line down, and I see love. So because I see love, I know that the emotion that they have taken is love. And I just put these away at that point. I don't make a big deal of looking through them or anything. I just say we don't need the rest of them. And I say, now think about it. You thought of an emotion, and you use that emotion to think of somebody. I want you to think of the first name of that person. I want you to think of that emotion. Can you do that for me? And they say yes. Now let's say this person's thinking of Sarah. You say to the second person, I'm going to go first with you. I want you to just very simply think of the name of the person. Can you do that for me? Just the first name. And they'll say yeah. And you act like you're trying to get that information off them, and you go, okay, interesting, I think I've got it. I'm going to write it down. And you're going to write down the word love, because we're using a one ahead principle here. So all you're going to do is you're going to write down whatever emotion that you glimpsed when you put those cards away. You don't show them though, you write down love, and you put that down onto the table. And you say, right, okay, I think I've got it. I've committed myself. What's the name of the person that you thought of? And they say Sarah. And you're interesting. Now go and look at the Pete Turner section of this project, because Pete and I discussed one ahead systems quite comprehensively, and Pete has some amazing thoughts on the one ahead principle and how you should react when that card is put down on the table. But how I react personally is I just go, okay, interesting. And you could have thought of anybody, right? Okay, now you're thinking of an emotion. You go to the first person that thought of the emotion. You say you're thinking of an emotion, right? Think of that emotion. Don't say anything. And all you're going to do on this card is you're going to write the word Sarah. So whatever name they said, you're going to write that on here. Okay, so you just write the word Sarah, and you put that down there. Now you just put the pen away, and you recap. And you say, now think about this. You went through and you thought of any emotion. My back was turned. You didn't tell anyone, you didn't write it down. Well, you did tell one person, you told this person over here, who's then used that emotion to think of a person. You haven't told anybody, you haven't told anybody, I know nothing. Now you're going to pick these cards up and you're just going to take the top card into the right hand and the bottom card into the left hand, which is going to put Sarah over here and it's going to put love over here. You say, right, okay. Now you already mentioned the name of the person you were thinking of. Who was it again? And they say Sarah, and you say Sarah. No one said anything. You didn't tell anybody. I made this prediction before you even said anything, and you said Sarah, and I wrote down Sarah. And you were thinking of an emotion. And you've still not told anyone that emotion. You've still not said it out loud. The only person who knows is you and you. For the first time, what was the emotion? And they say love, and you turn it round and you show love. And it's an incredible way to tell somebody the name of somebody they're thinking of without even having to do a peek, without using a peek wallet or a centre or anything like that. You can immediately tell them the name of the person that you're thinking of, and you can give a couple of business cards away as well, which is always nice. Now, one last piece of advice on this. If you don't want to, I always do it that way. And the reason I do is I want to have the person over here make a conscious decision of the emotion that they're going to pick. So I have them go through and cut it to the face and put it there, because that way I'm getting the glimpse way afterwards. I'm not getting the glimpse until after that card's been put away. And it's the perfect time to get the glimpse because it happens a couple of minutes after they've thought of that card. If you want to, however, you can use any other way of actually using this stack to get that word. So you could have them touch a card, cut at that point and give them that card, and I can look here and I can see exactly what the word is they're looking at. You could do that. You could also, if you wanted to, have them cut and complete the cut and take the card, but I honestly think that the best way of doing it is having them go through, pick an emotion that they feel compelled to pick, take that and put the rest down. That way, all of this is happening with your back turned, and when you come back, I can quickly look down, see the word outrage, put that in my pocket, and I know that the person has taken outrage. Whichever way you want to go, there's a lot of different options with that, but honestly, it's one of the cleanest and the most direct ways to reveal the name of the person somebody's thinking of without needing to use any peeks at all. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the next section, which is going to be all routines with the stack shuffled. So they don't need to be stacked at all, they're not in any particular order. We're going to be using a shuffled pack of cards. Let's have a look at that section right now.